You are stacking cans of crushed tomatoes at 3 in the morning for $15 an hour, and your back hurts in the two specific places it always hurts. Your coworkers know you as the quiet one, the guy who faces the cereal, brings the same lunch, never calls in sick. What they do not know is that across town, behind a chain-link fence on a road nobody drives unless they have to, there is a gravel lot full of orange roll-up doors, and the doors work for you. While you stack these shelves, they stand out there in the dark doing absolutely nothing, and doing it profitably. Nobody at this store has ever asked what you do with your Sundays, and you have spent years quietly making sure the question never comes up, because the honest answer would change every conversation in that break room forever. You put the last can on the shelf, face the label out, and check your watch. 2 more aisles until lunch, which at this job means 3:15 in the morning. This is the story of how a man who stacks shelves at night ends up owning the quietest business in town, one orange door at a time. It starts, honestly, with you being bad at throwing things away. 25 years old, moving out of a shared rental, you rented a 10 by 10 storage unit for $89 a month, meaning to empty it in 6 weeks. You paid for that unit for 19 months, $600 and some over what the stuff inside was worth, and you knew it by month 4, and you kept paying, because driving over there on a day off felt worse than $89 felt. The day you finally cleared it out, you stood in the doorway with the last box and did a strange thing. You counted doors, 112 units in that facility. You multiplied by even $80 and got roughly $9,000 a month for a gravel lot, a fence, some metal boxes, and one part-time woman named Carol in the office who mostly did crossword puzzles. No inventory that spoils, no shelves to stock. Storage was the only business you'd ever seen from the inside where the customers apologized to the business for staying too long and then keep staying. You drove home and could not stop thinking about it, the way you can't stop tonguing a loose tooth. For 2 years it stayed a fantasy with a spreadsheet because facilities cost 7 figures and you stock shelves. Then you learned, from a podcast you listened to while facing cereal boxes at 4 in the morning, that the storage industry has a bottom rung nobody talks about. Small, old, badly run facilities in small towns, 40 to 100 units, owned by the man who built them in 1980-something, who is now 74 and tired, who keeps no records beyond a spiral notebook, raises rent never, and answers the phone sometimes. These places don't get listed with brokers. They get inherited by kids who don't want them, or sold over coffee. The podcast guy called them mom and pops. You started spending your Saturdays driving 2-lane roads with a notebook of your own, writing down every faded storage sign you passed, and then going home and looking up who owned the dirt underneath it. County records are free. Everyone forgets that. 40 minutes on a county assessor website told you more about your town's storage facilities than most of their owners knew, and you built a list of 19 facilities within an hour of your apartment, with owner names and mailing addresses, and you wrote 19 letters by hand. Not clever letters, 3 sentences. I'm a local guy, I'd like to buy your facility someday, no pressure, here's my number. 17 never answered. 1 told you to get lost. One was Gene. Gene had 61 units on a slab off Route 9, behind a tractor dealership, a facility his late wife had mostly run, and he talked to you for 2 hours the first time you called, about her, about the units, about the roof he'd been meaning to fix since the second Bush administration. He wanted out. He did not want to sell to what he called the sunglasses guys, the out-of-state buyers who mailed him postcards every month offering to close in 2 weeks. The price took 4 months of Sunday phone calls to land. $210,000 for 61 units, grossing $3,900 a month at rents Gene hadn't raised since 2009, on a road the town was slowly growing toward. You had $28,000 saved from 3 years of night shift differentials and no life to spend it on. The gap terrified you in a way the night shift never had. A local bank, the kind with a hunting calendar in the lobby, looked at the deal for 2 weeks and offered $168,000 at a rate that made your eyes water, on the strength of the facility's income, your down payment, your W-2, and, the loan officer told you flatly, the fact that Gene was willing to hold a note for the last $20,000 himself. Sellers financing a piece of their own sale, you learned, is a bank's favorite lie detector. Gene believed in the dirt enough to stay tied to it. That was worth more than your credit score. You closed on a Tuesday morning, having worked all Monday night, and you drove straight from the grocery store to the facility, still in your work shirt, and let yourself in the gate with your own key, and stood in the gravel in the 7 a.m. light, listening to 61 metal doors do absolutely nothing at scale. That was the whole ceremony. You were the owner of a storage facility, and also you had to be back at the store at 10 p.m. And also 14 of the 61 units were, according to Gene's spiral notebook, occupied by people who had not paid in a range of 2 to 19 months, because Gene could not bring himself to lock out a widow, a veteran, 2 hunting buddies, or, as far as you could tell, anyone with a functioning sad story. You have thought about that notebook a lot since. Gene was a good man running a charity with a fence around it. The facility didn't need a visionary. It needed someone willing to be politely, consistently, boringly unsentimental 5 hours a week. That someone was you. The unglamorous truth of your first year as an owner is that it was a collections job. You sent 14 letters, made 30-some phone calls, ran 9 lien sales by the book, learned your state's lien statute the way other people learn fantasy league rules, and got cursed at exactly twice. 4 tenants paid up in full the week the letters landed, which told you everything about what Gene's kindness had actually been subsidizing. You raised rents to market, slowly, $8 here, 10 there, with 60 days' notice and a letter that explained the new gate, the new lights, the new cameras, all of which you installed yourself on weekends with tutorial videos and a rented lift. You lost 6 tenants to the increases. The wait list replaced them in 9 days at the new rates. By month 11, gross was $5,200 a month, occupancy was 93% of paying tenants, and the loan, the note to Gene, insurance, power, and the part-time bookkeeping cost $4,100, meaning your empire paid you at that point about $1,100 a month, which is $4 an hour if you count your weekends. You counted your weekends. You kept the night job. The empire needed time to grow into its own math, and the night job bought it that time, and bought your groceries at a discount besides. Here's what stacking shelves at night teaches you that no business podcast ever will. Systems beat effort. A well-faced aisle stays sellable all day with almost no touching, and a badly organized one eats labor forever. You ran the facility like an aisle. Auto pay required for all new tenants, a $5 a month discount for taking it, which cut your late payment problem by roughly 90%, because it turns out most delinquency isn't dishonesty, it's friction. A single pricing sheet taped inside the office window, gate codes that expire the day an account goes 45 days late, automatically, no phone call, no personal grudge, the software plays the villain so you never have to. 1 Sunday a month for maintenance, mowing, and sweeping out vacated units. Your rules were few, printed and enforced like gravity, gently and without exception, and the strange result, the one Gene never got to see, is that tenants like the place more this way. People trust a fence that doesn't have nudes. Facility 2 found you, which is how you knew the letters had worked even when they hadn't. A man named Otis called 3 years in, said his cousin was the one who told you to get lost back when, and said his own place, 44 units 2 towns over, had a tree through the back row and an insurance check he didn't have the energy to spend at 71 years old. You bought it storm damage for $131,000, fixed 11 units with the insurance money, and a contractor named Ray, who you paid on time every single Friday, which in rural contracting apparently makes you a mythical figure, and had it cash flowing in 7 months. The bank that had made you sweat the first time approved this loan in 9 days. Same lobby, same calendar, different posture. Banks, you learned, lend confidence, and confidence is just receipts they didn't have to ask for. The stress test came in year 5, and it came dressed exactly like opportunity, the way the worst ones do. A regional operator, 40 facilities, glossy trucks, offered to buy both your properties for $1.1 million, which against your combined loans would have put roughly $400,000 in your pocket before taxes. The man who came to lunch wore the nicest watch you had ever been near and called your facility's assets. The whole meal, never once the units, the doors, the tenants. You asked for a week. You spend it doing the only thing you know how to do at 3 in the morning, arithmetic. The two facilities together now grossed $11,200 a month and netted $5,100 after everything, and both notes were 5 years further along, and the town was still growing toward Route 9, and $400,000 invested in anything you understood would generate less than the doors already did, and would also be all you ever got, once, ever. You called him back and said no thank you. He raised the offer twice on the phone, 1.2, then 1.25 in about 90 seconds, which mostly taught you what the first number had been worth. When a buyer can find another $250,000 that fast, you are not selling an asset, you are surrendering a machine. You kept the machine. Nobody at the store knows any of this, and keeping it that way stopped being an accident and became a discipline around year 4. Both facilities are owned by their own LLC, and both LLCs are owned by Redline Storage Group, and Redline's registered agent is a company in a state you've never lived in that charges $119 a year to receive mail, and the trail from any orange door to your name requires the kind of subpoena nobody files over a storage unit. Your coworker Marcus, who you genuinely like, spent 4 months telling everyone in the break room about his brother-in-law's crypto thing, and then 4 months not mentioning it, and the arc of that silence taught you more about visible money than any book. You drive the same Civic, you bring the same lunch. When the night crew complains about rent going up, you complain too, and you are not lying. Your rent did go up. You just also happen to be on the other side of that math 91 times a month, and the two facts sit in you side by side, strange and quiet, like tenants who've never met. Your mother asked you once, gently, when you're going to get a real job, a day job, something with a title. She raised you alone on double shifts, and worry is how she loves. You told her the night shift paid a differential and let you avoid traffic, both true. What you did not tell her is that the differential is a rounding error now, and that you keep the job for reasons that have slowly inverted. Health insurance, yes. The W-2 that makes banks calm, yes. But mostly, honestly, the job is your last piece of ordinary, a place where you are exactly what you appear to be, a guy who faces the cereal and knows which pallet Jack pulls left, and no one wants anything from you except the aisle done by 6. There is a version of you that quit at year 3 and told everyone why, and somewhere in a parallel break room that version is fielding loan requests from second cousins and watching friendships get complicated. You think about him the way you think about Unit 12, the divorce, boxed. Some things you pay a little every month to keep sealed and off-site. The day you finally gave notice, it wasn't triumphant and it wasn't planned. It was a Wednesday in March, year 7. Facility 368 units, bought the previous summer from the estate of a man you'd written a letter to 6 years earlier, had just finished its first full quarter, and the 3 properties together netted a little over $9,000 a month after every loan, every bill, and the part-time pay of a manager named Dot, who is retired, terrifying, and the best hire you will ever make. Your store manager asked if you were going somewhere better. You said you had some family property to look after, which is what Redline is if you squint. They got you a sheet cake. Marcus wrote "Good luck, man" on it in icing himself, all lowercase, and you drove home at 7 in the morning behind the same commuters as always, with a cake on the passenger seat, feeling not fireworks but something better, a kind of structural quiet, the feeling of weight settling onto a foundation that had been poured years earlier, in the dark, on purpose, by you. Somewhere in year 6, you finally sat down and worked out why the doors beat every other building you could have bought. Because the answer is not luck, it is geometry. A storage unit rents for about $1.20 per square foot in your county. A decent apartment rents for about $1.40, nearly the same money per foot, except the apartment comes with a kitchen you must maintain, a tenant who lives there with rights that fill 400 pages of state law, a furnace, a roof over drywall, water heaters that die on holidays, and turnover costs that eat 2 months of rent every time somebody leaves. The unit comes with a concrete floor, a steel door, a light bulb, and a padlock the tenant buys themselves. No plumbing to freeze, no carpets to replace, no 2 a.m. calls because nobody lives in their stuff. They just can't let go of it. When a storage tenant leaves, make ready is a broom. 11 minutes, you've timed it. and the demand side is stranger and stronger than anyone admits. Storage rent's in good years, because people buy more than they can hold, and it rents harder in bad ones, because downsizing, divorce, foreclosure, and death all produce the same output: boxes that need a door. Gene's spiral notebook had tenants from 2 recessions who never left. You have tenants whose monthly rent has quietly passed the resale value of everything inside their unit, and they know it, and they pay anyway, because the unit isn't storing furniture at that point, it's storing a version of their life they're not done negotiating with. At $89 a month, and you learned to stop moralizing about it the day you remembered you once did the exact same thing for 19 months. The expansion math is the last piece nobody sees. The extra acre behind Facility 1, the one Gene mowed for 30 years for no reason, now holds 22 new units you built for around $41,000. A pole barn row with roll-up doors, no plumbing, no framing crew, up in 9 weeks. At current rents, those doors gross about $2,300 a month, which means the dirt cheapest building in America pays for itself in under 2 years and then just stands there forever printing. No other asset you've ever studied lets a man with a broom and a spreadsheet manufacture new rent out of gravel for the price of a used pickup. That's the whole cathedral. Steel, concrete, human nature, and arithmetic, none of it glamorous, all of it load-bearing. Last year, Facility 4 found you, and you almost said no out of superstition, because Facility 4 was the facility. The one with 112 doors, where a 25-year-old version of you paid $89 a month for 19 months to avoid driving across town on a day off. It came up for sale the ordinary way, the owner aging out, a broker this time, a real listing, and you walked it on a Thursday morning with the broker talking cap rates at your shoulder, and you stopped in front of Unit 227 and stood there long enough that he checked his phone. Your old unit. Same dented track on the door, you'd know it anywhere, you dented it. Carol was long gone from the office, retired to her daughter's place in Ocala, but the crossword books were still on the shelf in there, which nearly did you in. You bought the place for $620,000, the biggest check of your life. Structured the boring way, the bank calm as a lake about it now, and the first change you made, before the gate codes, before the rate sheet, was one you have never fully explained to Dot. Unit 227 doesn't rent. It's a storage unit for the company now, holds the spare locks, the leaf blower, the folding table for the twice-a-year tenant appreciation cookout, and a single banker's box with a printout of a 19-month payment history. Customer name yours, $89 at a time, $1,691 total, the dumbest money you ever spent and the most expensive education you never knew you were buying. Every business has a founding myth. Most guys frame the first dollar they made. You keep the record of the first dollars you wasted, in the exact room you wasted them in, 12 feet from where you stood in a doorway at 25, and counted doors for the first time. The broker asked, at closing, what drew you to the property. Strong fundamentals, you said, which was true. It's just that the fundamentals were yours. People imagine an ending where the number gets big and life turns cinematic. Here's the actual ending, which is better and smaller. It is a Sunday morning. You are at Facility 1, Gene's old place, with a push broom sweeping out Unit 31, vacated clean by a family that used it for 2 years during a renovation. The gravel crunches. The tractor dealership next door is testing an engine. Dot has already re-rented the unit off the wait list, $9 higher, to a tenant she screened with 2 questions and a look. Last month, the 3 facilities, 173 doors, grossed $22,100, and the loans and Dot and the power and the insurance took $13,000, and what remained was more than double your best year wages, and it arrived without a single aisle stack. Gene died 2 winters ago. His daughter mailed you the spiral notebook, said he'd have wanted you to have it. It's in the office drawer at Route 9 under the pricing sheet. You keep it there on purpose, the way some businesses frame their first dollar. It's your reminder of the whole secret, the one nobody puts on a podcast because it's too plain. The doors were always worth money. Someone just had to run them like they mattered, 5 unsentimental hours a week for years without needing anyone to see it. Eject the hasp on 31, roll the door down, and it lands with the sound you've come to like best in the world. A small, solid orange thunk, paid through the first, all quiet, yours. If this kind of quiet arithmetic is your kind of story, the subscribe button is right there, and it costs exactly nothing, which is the best price this channel knows. A new one arrives tomorrow. Same time, same desk, different machine.